Ready?
Yes.
Let's do it. My girl Finley, thank you so much for coming in on your non-coaching day and sharing your story, your message, and what you're up to out here in Charlotte. I'm excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
So for everybody who doesn't know who you are, give us a little background on yourself and what you're up to.
So my name is Finley Funsten. I am the general manager at Madabolic Charlotte, and then I'm also a nutritionist, specializing in performance-based nutrition, but I do work with plenty of people who aren't maybe on the range of the athletic spectrum that I specialize in. So I can work with a lot of different people.
And so tell us about where you're from, your young life, everything like that. Walk us through.
Okay, I grew up in Chicago, in the Midwest, so I still don't put ketchup on my hot dogs, because I'm not a serial killer. So I grew up in Chicago, really fond memories of the Midwest, but I went to Davidson College, so I migrated south, and I've been in Charlotte since I graduated from Davidson. I loved the area so much, I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
Loved Chicago, but those winters are really rough, and I've had enough of them. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to be in Charlotte.
Missed that little that bomb that hit on last winter.
Yeah.
So what ultimately made you choose Davidson?
Yeah, so I went to Davidson College. I played field hockey there. So I was recruited to play field hockey probably starting my sophomore year. I had never really heard of it, but the coach was very persistent, and I really, really liked her a lot, and I had met her at a few tournaments, like recruiting camps, recruiting tournaments, and ultimately I started going to the Davidson field hockey camp, and I loved the campus, and it just, my relationship with the coach really led me there. And then once I was on campus for those recruiting visits, I was sold. It was this is a fun fact, it was the only school I applied to, and I had committed and got in June going into my senior year of high school, which was really kind of nice. I got to cruise through my last year of high school without having to worry too much about college, which was really fun.
I bet it was. I didn't take my SAT until like my senior year, so I couldn't even apply anywhere. But I was 1 for 1 as well.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech, and then
all three. I'm one of three. I have an older sister and an older brother. All three of us applied and went to one school.
Yeah.
Wild.
Hey, 1 for 1.
Yeah.
I like that. So how was your transition into college, into Davidson, going from high school to being a student athlete in college? What did that look like?
It was tough. Davidson's academic course load is pretty rigorous, so trying to balance being a Division I athlete, the demands that come with that, on top of the classes that I was taking, trying to stay on top of, was definitely a challenge. My freshman year was my most challenging on the academic side. But then I just really becoming a creature of habit and routine and the structure that field hockey season, in season and out of season, was just so structured. It really helped me by the end with managing my academic course load, because there were really only specific times that I could work, so it just kind of forced you into this pattern of academic commitment outside of the athletic commitment. So it was definitely challenging at first, but far more rewarding than not, and it really instilled the value of structure and organization into my life that I think that I still tap into today.
Yeah, I have the same. My freshman year was a mess. And then,
horrible. Yeah.
Academic probation. That's what led me to transferring anyway.
Oh man.
Yeah, I needed that fresh start.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people go through that transition going into college, just not really knowing what's going on, living on your own, finding your community. It can be tough. And if I didn't have my sports, I don't know what would happen.
I know. Yeah.
I needed that structure as well.
Yeah.
Did you love field hockey before?
Yes.
Did you fall in love with it in high school?
Yeah. I fell in love with it when I was in the 4th grade, because my older sister played, and I had to do everything my sister did. So that's what really got me into it. I just wanted to be like my older sister, Lily. She's about 6.5 years older than I am, and she was a stellar field hockey player. So I wanted to be just like her. So I started early, 4th or 5th grade, and developed skills from there and turned out to be a decent player. So I loved it. I loved it in grade school, I loved it in high school, I loved it even more in college. The collegiate field is wildly different than the high school field, as I'm sure it goes with any elite caliber sport, variety of that sport. There's just a lot more skill and technique, and it was really fun. I miss it.
And so, now you're a trainer, did you kind of see yourself being a trainer, or did you like the strength and conditioning portions of?
Yes, we lifted 2 or 3 times a week, and I loved that component. A lot of girls didn't. I think just as there's still kind of that issue today, the issue back then was a lot of the girls didn't want to get bulky. I didn't really fall into that camp. I loved the lifts. I thought it was super empowering, and it felt good to just feel strong. So I really liked it, but I did not think that it would transition to my life out of college. I did not expect to be where I am today.
Yeah, what did you study in college?
I was an English major and a Spanish minor.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Spanish minor, too.
Spanish minor. I could have majored in it. I just wasn't able to study abroad.
Because of athletics?
Yes.
Yeah.
My coach was great. She allowed her student athletes to go abroad if they wanted to in the off season. I chose not to. I wanted to stay on the turf and work on my skill.
Yeah, I can definitely relate for sure. It was like every summer I was there on campus. I never went home.
Same.
I was just there.
Yeah.
Bought in from day one.
Totally.
Yeah. So then how did your career go?
It was good. It was strong. I was telling you before, I feel kind of douchey recounting my successes, but it was. I had
celebrate yourself.
Yeah, I had a good career. My sophomore and junior years, I was our conference overall player of the year and offensive player of the year, and I still hold all of the Davidson women's field hockey scoring records and points records, which it was really fun. So I was a forward, which is unusual because someone of my size is normally stuck into the defensive side of the field, so it was really fun. Just being this enormous brick shit house on the front line and scoring goals. It was a good time.
Just going after them. I love that.
Yeah,
I love it.
Good.
So then after college, where did you transition next?
I went straight into Charlotte. So going into my senior year, I stayed on campus in Davidson over the summer to keep training, but I got an internship at a public accounting firm called Dixon Hughes Goodman.
Yeah.
So they're headquartered in Charlotte. I think it's still the biggest CPA firm in the Southeast. So I had an internship there in their marketing department, which seems kind of random. Like I didn't know anything about accounting, but it turns out the person who I had interviewed with not only went to Davidson, but she also played field hockey, so that was kind of a nice connection. So it was a good in. So I interned there. The internship went great, and they offered me a job right out of college. So I graduated Davidson. I moved to Charlotte, and I started working at Dixon Hughes Goodman. So I had been there only for a few months, and what's funny, so this is, I was introduced to MAD while I still had my corporate, 9 to 5, a very structured 9 to 5 job. Yeah. And my field hockey coach from Davidson, who lives in Charlotte, her name is Ginny, and she was big on working out, big on conditioning. We were always very well conditioned, and honestly, by the time I had finished, wrapped up field hockey, the last thing I wanted to do was work out with her again. I was just kind of over it, and it was kind of nice to have my own schedule and my own, I just would go on some runs here and there. I wasn't really ready to pick back up the workout game right after I graduated. And you could tell I was still eating like a collegiate athlete, even though I wasn't training like one. But anyway, she called me and was like, "You got to come with me to try this new workout. It's called, at that time it was called Fight Gone Mad. We had rebranded several years back, but it opened as Fight Gone Mad. She said, you gotta come with me to Fight Gone Mad. They have this new client special, it's 10 days for $10, just come with me. And I was like, oh gosh, I really don't wanna work out with you again. She was persistent, so I went in.
Yeah.
And the first day I went in, over the next 10 days, I went probably 6 or 7 more times and was hooked and immediately signed up for a 12-month membership and trained as a client for a few months before I had the discussion with them to onboard as a trainer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was your first introduction to group fitness as well.
Yes, exactly.
And then you just it consumed you.
And it reminded me, like, even though I was kind of resistant to getting back into the conditioning game right after field hockey ended, it just reminded me how much I really did enjoy that environment. And I think a Division I athletic program is so intense that everyone can benefit from the break right afterwards, but I really did thrive in that group environment, and it really actually pointed out how not good I am at trying to work out by myself. I'm just used to having someone walking me through the workout, telling me what to do, programming things for me. So I resonate with that. It takes the thought out of having to come up with your own workout, which I enjoyed. And the environment, the athletic environment, was just very kind of injected a dose of nostalgia in me of like all the things that I enjoyed about strength and conditioning as a collegiate athlete.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about group fitness is like people say that they don't have time to work out, but it's like if you're going into goals and you have to program your own workout, and most people don't do it until they walk in the gym, like, what am I going to do today?
Right.
And then no wonder it takes 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
When you don't have a script. And so when you're coming in there and they got it dialed down, they got the times, they got the rests, and you don't have to think, that's when it's like, boom, you can really just get after it and take that hour.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And so after you started going consistently, when did you transition into the training portion? When did you decide to want to become a trainer?
So the guys, I would say maybe 6 months into my tenure there as just a client, and I was working out I was overtrained. I loved it so much. I was going every day. I remember very distinctly one day, Kirk, the co-owner, pulled me aside after class. He was like, hey, Amato, how many times have you been here in the last 2 weeks? I feel like I've seen you every day. I was like, I think I've been here every day. He was like, you have to take a rest day. Like, we love that you love it, but like recover. Yeah. So I was definitely overtraining. I loved it so much, but I think they sensed how much I enjoyed the program, and they knew I was from Chicago, so they would kind of nudge me, mostly joking, but be like, hey, you want to go open a franchise in Illinois? And I was like, well, no, I don't want to move back to Chicago, but I would actually, if you guys are serious, I would have a conversation with you about what franchise ownership might look like. And I was just curious, and obviously where I am now, that we took a few different turns, but that was the topic that segued into my meeting with them. And they walked me through what franchising looked like. At that point, I was 22, so not at all in a position financially, mentally, ready to open a franchise. But they were like, why don't you join our staff and become a trainer? Immediately intrigued. So I went through onboarding. The onboarding process was pretty rigorous. It took me from that conversation to when I taught my first class, it was several months. Probably longer than that actually, because I went and we had to get certified in strength and conditioning, so I went through that and then went through the in-house onboarding and then joined as a trainer. But I still had my job at Dixon Hughes Goodman, so I was still working that 9-to-5 job. So for about 2 or 3 years, closer to 3 years, I was just a trainer, and I was coaching before and after work. So I could do the 5:30 a.m. classes or like the 6:30 p.m. classes. So I was coaching around my corporate job. And then in 2 years ago from June, so just a little past 2 years now, the opportunity fell into my lap to transition into the general manager role, which was actually a really challenging decision at first when they presented that to me. I I loved fitness, and at that point I was also already well into my certification education as a nutritionist. So I loved the fitness and nutrition field, but I wasn't looking to leave. I wasn't actively searching for a new job. It's not that marketing for an accounting firm isn't like the sexiest job ever, but at that point I was running the marketing department for the dealerships industry of DHG, and I just really loved the company, and I really loved my boss. I think that loving who you work for and who you work with is arguably more impactful than the what sometimes.
Yeah.
Like if you love what you're doing but you hate everyone you're
Who
with,
you're doing
like
it with,
that's not fulfilling.
Yeah.
So the work itself was, it was fine. But the people that I worked with was incredible. I had a ton of PTO. The job itself was pretty flexible. I could work from home all the time. There were a lot of perks to the job itself outside of the actual what. So I just wasn't, I wasn't.
You weren't on the hunt.
I wasn't looking to leave.
Yeah.
So, and I had to make this decision within a few days. And so I had a conversation with my now husband, and he was like, do it. You should do it.
Yeah.
So I did it, and it was really scary, but it's so worth it. I can't imagine being anywhere else than where I am right now.
And so what were some things you had to overcome to make that decision, and especially post decision? When you finally made it, how did that transition look like for you?
I just think the unfamiliar is scary for anyone. So I just didn't, moving from a comfortable job where my income was steady and I had all this flexibility in, travel and, honestly, the PTO part, I think I got 39 days of paid time off a year. It was insane. That was hard to say goodbye to. It was just, but it was hard, but at the same time, it really wasn't, because I knew that would mean moving towards Madabolic would mean I would work with Kirk and Brandon every day, who are the two co-founders and owners, and they're freaking awesome. So I knew that I was going to love that component. Moving into retail, as you know, on the Lululemon side of things, just there's a little less flexibility in time away. Yeah. So I knew that would mean working Saturdays, and but on the plus side, the structure, I wasn't working through this very rigid 9 to 5 schedule, and I remember there'd be days at the office where if I didn't have anything to do, it's I would shop online or something to kill time until 5 o'clock hit, which is just such an inefficient use of time. Yeah. And I don't know. I think I'm definitely straying away from the original question you asked me.
Oh no, you're good.
It's just hard. I wasn't going into it expecting to not like the new job. Yeah. It was just scary moving into unfamiliar territory when I was very comfortable and familiar with my previous job and source of income. And retail is just a whole different animal.
Yeah, because people struggle with that. People who, even if they're finding their passion and they're like, I have a passion for this, but I can't leave this comfortability. Right. That's a huge transition.
Well, and let's call a spade a spade. A lot, they're smart, Kirk and Brandon, with incentivizing based on impact on growth and Madabolic's growth across Charlotte in terms of compensation. So when you go in knowing that you're going to be compensated based on the gym's performance and how you're impacting that, that's also, there's just a big question mark. You're like, well, what if I fail, or what if my ideas don't work? What if it's just a big flop and we don't do the damn thing? Yeah. That was just scary territory. But a week in, I was like, this was the right decision.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. And so what is going down in these metabolic workouts? Like, tell us about the actual workout.
What it is.
Yeah, what it is and what's going on.
Yeah, so it is interval-driven strength and conditioning, and every single workout revolves entirely around a work-to-rest ratio. And all of the work-to-rest ratios stem from a focus on energy systems. So we tap into different energy systems, and we have 3 different styles of intervals. So when you come in, you'll run into one of 3 types of intervals, either a momentum-based interval, an anaerobic-based interval, or a durability-based interval. So long story short, momentum is just this gradual build. You start kind of at a warm-up pace, and as you cycle through, you get stronger and faster. Durability is a slow, gritty strength day. It's about an 80% output all day long, and because you're working for a longer period of time, you're moving slowly, you're managing your weight, you're performing movement patterns you can sustain for a longer period of time, like a heavy carry, a walking lunge. And then anaerobic is what most people expect when they come in. That's going to resemble more of your HIIT type workout. It's a 1-to-1 work-to-rest ratio. It's your max effort. It's a full sprint from start to finish. You'll see speed and power, very ballistic movements like suicide sprints, kettlebell swings, dumbbell snatches. It's all barbell free, which for the large majority of clients that come in just makes it a more of a risk-free training experience. So we consider ourselves a true training program. For those that train with us 4 times a week is our optimal. Most of our members train with us 4 times a week. And they're hitting all 3 of these styles of intervals, which lends to a very balanced training program. Alternatively, it serves as a really nice complement for athletes in their own craft. So we have a lot of marathon runners that come in to strengthen their runs twice a week, or yogis that come in here and there to strengthen their practice on the mat. So it can kind of be all you do, or it can be this complementary, more ancillary workout that complements whatever it is that you do or that you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So it can be your number 1 place, or it can be your supplement to your favorite practice as well. Yeah, I love that. And then you guys incorporate, because you guys have the punching bags in there. There's a lot of primal movements as well, and then you got the kettlebells and dumbbells. Machines. So you guys incorporate a lot of different.
So I will say, so from a programming side, the strength elements go in first always. So Kirk and Brandon were professional hockey players in their past lives, in their previous careers, and then they joined forces and opened up Fight Gone Mad, which I've rebranded to Madabolic, and it's all top-down programming. So they do all of the programming for every single location. The workout in Charlotte today is the same workout you'll see in Atlanta, in Mad Atlanta. So they do all of the programming. They start with the strength elements, and then they factor in a cardio movement, maybe a primal movement, something body weight driven, cardio. I already said cardio. We box every day, so the bag is always a really fun element that people really like. But you can see their athletic background in the programming, which I think lends to a really cool experience for the client who maybe even wasn't an athlete. Like it enables you to just feel like this badass athlete in an everyday kind of safely delivered group setting.
Yeah. And so what can someone expect if someone just walked off the street and walked into a Madabolic? What could they expect, like physically and mentally, to experience?
I think that they would undergo both a challenging and approachable experience. It is very scalable to the individual's athletic ability, or wherever they are in their fitness journey, they will get something out of it, which makes it, enjoyable and fun to offer anyone in the fitness game who is interested in, bettering themselves.
Yeah. I love that. And then mentally as well, because I've done some workouts where I'm just like, I'm pooped out there. And then other times I'm like, man, it's hard for me to hold 80% the whole time and not push myself to that 100 because I am an athlete.
In the same way, it's both mentally challenging but also mentally approachable. It's very efficient, so you're not, a lot of times, like on those days where you leave and you're like, holy crap, I am so wiped. It was probably an anaerobic day.
Yeah.
Or the end of a momentum day. And the durability day is often where people struggle mentally to actually honor the 80% output that we ask.
Yeah.
And I think that feeds into a larger issue of the large majority of people, of active individuals, not grasping the importance of slowing down, dialing in solid mechanics that you shouldn't feel like you're killing yourself every time you train or work out, right? Just because something didn't have you waxed and on your ass at the end of the day doesn't make it not a good workout, right? So yeah, I think mentally challenged, the biggest mental challenge comes when we ask you to slow down, because most people want to just like crush themselves. Yeah.
It's funny you say it like that, because I heard one, I forgot who it was, but he was saying that when he trains, he like never goes 100% because he's gonna train every day. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, I'm gonna get more time in rather than take days off.
Totally.
So he's like, why do 10 pull-ups if you can only do 10 pull-ups when you can do 10 sets of 2 and get 20
and
pull-ups.
Get a little more out of it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And recovery, like something that I think is unique about our approach, when we notice people coming in more than 4 or 5 days a week, we tell them to stop. Like, we don't want to see you 7 days a week.
Yeah.
You need to take a day or two a week to like recover. I love that you want to be here.
Yeah.
I was there. I overtrained all the time because I loved it so much. And gym FOMO is like just so real.
Yeah.
So I think that that is an important element, and also from a like how I would hope that someone feels coming in and leaving mad. Ideally, if they don't feel like this, our training staff, we haven't done our job, but they should feel supported and seen. It should feel like it is designed to feel like a one-on-one training experience delivered in a safe group, high energy setting.
Yeah.
I try to, provide some kind of thorough cue correction piece of advice or whatever to everyone on the floor before they leave.
Yeah.
So they should feel safe and seen by the trainer on the floor.
Yep. You crushed my kettlebell swing. You critiqued mine a couple times, and you're like, oh, well, you got that part. Now fix this one.
Well, you look at, so you're a good example of someone that's fun to train and provide corrections to because you already move really well. So it's fun to have the opportunity to advance someone who's already pretty advanced and to give you small little cues that maybe you haven't heard before to make it even better than it already is.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not necessarily triaging your form because you've never done a kettlebell swing. You know how to swing a kettlebell. So, and that's just one of the most complex movements, even though it looks so simple, that it's really fun to like be able to provide advanced cues to someone who's already positioned.
Yeah, and I felt the difference instantly, and I was like, oh, like that's
different.
Yeah, that pop at the top and everything. And it's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
So let's kind of switch to your nutrition side and what you're doing on that part. That was a big part of my life as well, being a wrestler, cutting weight. And, and so I love hearing about this stuff. And so what was it? Just like I wanted to get, once you got into fitness, you were looking to further and go into nutrition?
Honestly, yeah. So what started as a personal goal really just spiraled into something bigger than me. So I got into nutrition for selfish reasons. I just wanted to learn more about what went so seamlessly, it seamlessly ties into fitness.
Yeah.
So I wanted to elevate that whole game, but I really just, I had no intentions to take it any further than just educating myself so that I could better myself.
Yeah.
And through everything that I learned, I was like bug-eyed with every chapter that I read, with every article I came across. I learned so much that I couldn't imagine not opening other people's eyes. I think I think the specific population of people that I'm surrounded with, which is, generally people who are active or interested in fitness and health, and I think so many people are nutritionally blind.
Yeah.
And I was, so I wanted to help other people kind of learn and see what took me a really long time to learn and see.
Yeah, I always think that the person I try to help was once me one day. It was like, what issues did you have any issues with your relationship with food, because you said that when you were done playing sports, you were still eating.
I was still eating like an athlete, and I wasn't training.
But you weren't training, and so
Totally.
Was it something like that stemmed that interest? And
kind of, yeah. So I mean, when I was in college, we were working out all the time. So, and I wish that I knew more about nutrition when I was playing field hockey. I would have been a million times better. I really didn't realize how strongly food correlated with performance and just how you feel. So yeah, I mean, right after I finished playing field hockey, I put on a solid amount of, like, probably 30 pounds or so, 30 or 40 pounds. I put a lot of weight on because I was, in addition to still eating like an athlete, I was also cramming. So field hockey is a fall sport, so I had spring without field hockey my senior year. I was cramming like 3.5 years of traditional college into one semester, so I was drinking like a fish.
Yeah.
And I started to kind of resemble the kegs that I was, standing on.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I became interested in learning more about that, and before I got into the certification side, I just talked to people that I knew, were active in the nutrition scene, and they helped guide me towards, in the right direction. And I was just interested enough. I was like, I want to like certify myself. I want to know for myself. So it definitely, my relationship with food wasn't necessarily bad. I just didn't know anything. I didn't know enough about nutrition to like feel confident in what I was doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I will say that closer to as I got more and more interested in nutrition, I'll retract the poor relationship with food. There were periods of my nutritional phases where I didn't do so hot with that element.
Yeah.
So when the paleo trend got really hot, I definitely fell in the camp of like demonizing foods. Carbs are the devil. I would feel intense shame if I ate anything on the no list. I became somewhat of a social hermit. Like I would say no to going out to dinner or going out on a Saturday night with my girlfriends because I didn't want to like break the rules, which knowing what I know now is it's just so ass backwards. And I think a lot of people still suffer from that. I mean, I think there are very helpful ways to implement a paleo lifestyle, but I'm just using that as an example. I think that exists in all different types of diets and I think nutrition across the board is implemented very dogmatically for people who don't necessarily.
It's big on if your diet's stopping you from living your life, that's when it's a problem, because then it's like unknowingly you do have this relationship with food that's taken over your relationships that you could be having with other people
and with yourself.
Yeah, totally. It's huge. I mean, I cut so much weight in college, and it was just, I mean, luckily I was doing it right, and I was seeing my nutritionist all the time, and it was more so like looking at the plate and kind of seeing like what was on your plate and the portion sizes on there. And
wrestling can take it so, like, I'm sure you were implementing crazy water manipulation strategies
and that just comes with the sport.
Of course, yes.
It definitely came with the sport, but and I had been doing it since high school, and so it's like I was getting diets and stuff from college coaches, and I was eating 7 times a day and just spacing out my meals, had my snacks in there, and it was all calculated pretty consciously and just very efficient, but it still was like hard for me as a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Not being able to
It makes you grow up a little faster than you probably intended.
Yeah, and then cooking my own meals and stuff at home, and it's like my family would have one meal, and then I'd be cooking my own meal while they're at dinner. And yeah, it's hard things like that, but now it's like I have a good relationship with food now, because it's like I know what's good, I know what's bad, and I just kind of steer away from those and can kind of navigate the situation a lot better. But how do you help people navigate their nutrition?
So I focus on macro-based nutrition. So macros refers to 3 primary macronutrients that make up our daily caloric intake. So protein, carbs, and fat. And based on the individual's lifestyle, what their goals are, where they've come from, like where they're coming from on a dietary spectrum, will tailor what their macronutrient goals are for the day. It's a precise form of nutrition to help meet goals, but while it's precision based, I never expect or ask for perfection. It's generally just, this is a rough goal for your carb, rough goal for your protein, rough goal for your fat. And it can be it's not intended to be implemented forever, but it is a very powerful educational tool surrounding what we eat, because I think a lot of people have really no idea the composition of what's on their plate, or what 2 tablespoons of peanut butter actually looks like when you're tracking it, or when you the first time I weighed a serving of peanut butter was maybe the most depressing day.
It's like I need to just start making a peanut butter sandwich and just taking 1 piece of bread and folding it in half instead of making 2 pieces.
So I focus on macro-based nutrition. If you're looking at the what of what I'm programming, but what also people get, I think, out of the one-on-one coaching is I feel like I'm giving people the permission to eat again. Which is sad that people need the permission to eat, but it's nice to have an objective third-party view on what you're doing, how to reach your goals. And almost, I would say, of all my clients, I end up having to send 80 to 90% of them into a reverse diet. A lot of them come to me with a fat loss goal. Unfortunately, most of them are not in a position to safely lose fat. Because they've been chronically under eating due to all of the misinformation. They have or they have just this really skewed relationship with food. So I try and teach them that there's really no food, there's no yes food. Food isn't good, food isn't bad, food is food. There should be no moral associations with what you eat and what you put in your mouth. Some foods are more nutrient dense than others, and some foods make you feel worse than others. So macro tracking, in my opinion, is an excellent tool to flex this balance muscle and to be able to eat things that you like while also focusing on the quality of your diet. So it's a learning curve for sure, and it takes a lot of time and practice to remove the stigma around good versus bad, yes and no. You're gonna be so, like, when someone emails me with a check and they're like, you're gonna be really mad at me for my weekend. I'm like, no, I'm not, and you shouldn't be either. And maybe you overate to the point of discomfort. That's very normal. Like, taking mental record of like how you feel based on what you're eating is just it's a very helpful, almost like side effect or bonus, I'd say, of macro tracking. It really allows you to understand what the proper amount of fuel looks and feels like based on what your goals are, where you're trying to go, Yeah,
I definitely know. I haven't tried counting macros just because I lived on a scale.
Yep.
And so I didn't want to do anything with numbers.
That's fair. So I will put that addendum in there. It's definitely not for everyone, especially if it can serve as a trigger for obsessive or disordered behaviors. So there are some clients that or prospective clients that will reach out and express an eating disorder past, and I generally will refer them out to someone who is qualified to treat that. That's not what I do. I can't do that. So there are stipulations around who can benefit from it and who might treat it more obsessively, because it's not intended to be a crippling habit.
Yeah, it's more guidelines.
Yes, exactly. And it's a way to be able to eat intuitively. Like, intuitive eating is a big buzzword, and I find that sometimes intuitive eating can be hard if you don't actually have the framework or the point of reference to know what the right amount of fuel is for you individually.
Yeah.
So that is another way that macros can help with that. But yeah, it's not a dogma. There's no like, this is the right way to eat. It's just, I find it can be very educational and helpful for the large majority of people who come to me.
Have you seen a consistent like misconception over your clients on like certain foods or certain macros or just certain...
I think the misconception is that kind of no versus yes. There's that foods are bad or good. The most common one these days, I think, fall in line with the ketogenic diet or low carb, high fat, or low carb, low fat. I think carbs are unnecessarily demonized, and I think that is very much just a byproduct of the rise in popularity of Whole30 and paleo and keto. And while there are always exceptions to the rule, the people that I generally work with are active, young. They're not like clinically obese. So, which is where those diets can, or like at least the low carb, high fat can be a very effective weight loss tool. But for the active individual, it's not necessary. Not one macronutrient is bad or should be ruled out. They're all important. You need them all for different reasons. So those are the largest misconceptions around I think nutrition in general is living and dying by these insane restrictions on food groups, individual foods, entire macronutrients, which I think feeds into this yo-yo diet culture and this restrict, binge, restrict, like this just both physically and mentally unhealthy cycle.
Yeah. And carbs always get the bad rep.
Oh my God, I think they're making a comeback though.
I hope so.
I think they are.
Because if I'm like having a low energy day, it's like I need carbs.
Yes,
and then it's like I can feel it when it's like, all right, that protein's not going to do me right now. I need my carbs.
And with a balanced diet where you're including carbs, fats, and protein, you can be fat adapted and operate on fat as an energy source. But carbs are your body's favorite source of energy. So if you, just to simplify it, if you think of this way, protein fuels your muscles, fats fuel your hormones, carbs fuel your energy. And all three of those things are important, right?
Yeah.
So carbs, I think, are making a comeback, and even though my reach is small, it's so worth it one at a time, seeing people like feel freedom with what they're eating. And usually it just naturally segues into solid decisions and a focus on high quality food, but like not beating yourself up or starving yourself the day after you enjoy a few scoops of ice cream or something that you didn't plan,
Yeah. And so what has been your biggest takeaway being a nutritionist and being this outlet for people to find that better relationship with food and become more nutrition savvy?
It's very fulfilling to slowly, and one client at a time, or even one like Instagram follower at a time. It's really touching getting messages from random people being like, one of my sayings is, and excuse my French, eat the fucking cookie, just eat the fucking cookie. Do you want a cookie? Eat it.
Yeah.
And then move on with your day, So I've gotten a few DMs over the past few weeks being like, I ate the fucking cookie tonight and I feel so great about it. And even so, just one person at a time, enabling people to start working with their bodies instead of against it is just very fulfilling. I don't know if that's necessarily a takeaway, but it's very fulfilling to in my small little corner fighting this this diet culture that makes people feel worse about themselves and helping people kind of embrace fueling themselves instead of starving themselves. Because why would your body want to do what you want it to do if you're constantly fighting it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I always got a lot of like people reaching out to me like, how'd you lose all this weight and stuff? And I'm like, I'm not gonna tell you how I did it because I didn't do it the right way, you know.
Well,
I did it
it was
the right
for
way,
sport.
but it was
it's completely different. Like
yeah.
I have one client who is training for a figure show, for a bikini show, and that's a completely different nutritional strategy. It can be dangerous, and I would refer. I ended up referring her out to a bodybuilder, like a bodybuilding nutrition coach. When you're eating for a sport, it's different. That's a little outside of my scope. I wouldn't say you did it the wrong way. You just did it in alignment with what, falls in line with wrestling. I'll take back that I did it the wrong way. I think I did it as good as I could. Yeah, you were structured, you were diligent, but it still isn't for the average. For the average individual person. Just looking to get healthy. You're not going to lose 6 pounds in a day like I was just to weigh in. Right. It's like I'm not giving you those tips. Well, and you're talking about like losing the 6 pounds in however many days just to weigh in. That brings up a good point about patience and like how the overnight results that everyone seems to like be hungry for are not the ones that last. They're not sustainable. So I see that a lot. Sally lost 15 pounds in a month doing keto. Well, that sounds awesome, but if you don't know anything about the makeup of carbs and fats and what they do in your body, then you wouldn't know that carbs are a water-loving macronutrient, so they retain more water, so it takes a little time to get used to that, adjust, and be able to flush that kind of bloat and retention out. Whereas when you remove carbs, you lose a ton of water weight right off the bat. So Sally loses 15 pounds doing keto, even though she's 26 years old, very active, works out 5 times a day, sometimes doubles up on workouts, which that's a whole nother issue I have. But and then it's like this, well, now what? Honestly, almost every time I see someone like, well, my friend lost 20 pounds in 2 months and I want to do that, but like, let's look at your friend 2 months later. She's probably plateauing, really struggling, probably putting some weight back on because these unsustainable or these kind of panic button strategies that people employ to lose weight in a hurry, you can't sustain them. That's just, so the patience element is also a fulfilling piece to teach when people are like finally at peace with the fact that it takes months to sometimes years to both repair your relationship with food, but also to undergo the lifelong changes that you make and can hold on to. It's about consistency and not just that quick fix. So let's kind of go into you a little bit. If you knew Finley, you would know what? You would know blank. You would know that that 4-letter words are both her favorite communicative piece, and they also seem to get her in trouble a lot. Hey, I love them, honestly. That no filter, never lose that. I'm in the right industry for that. I gotta say, I was getting in deep water sometimes at my corporate accounting job. Like, that's it. Finley's not allowed to ever step in front of a client. And what are some habits and routines that you do that you would recommend someone to get more out of their day, their week, their life? Okay, so I think something that's very important in terms of routine, right? Was that the question? Routine. So consistency is king, right? Consistency over time. Some days might be more off than others, but consistency and routine is very impactful and I think overrated when it comes to achieving whatever goals you have, even if it's professionally, physically, mentally, nutritionally, but engaging in things that you like is that's what I try to do every day that I would recommend everyone tries to implement for themselves. So do things that you like, train the way you like, eat things that you like, things that are going to allow you to adhere to your strategy without like burning out or saying, F it and throwing the towel in.
Yeah.
So for example, I personally really hate running. Like, you won't ever see me out on a jog. So I don't run. Like, I don't run. I get that a lot with clients. They're like, well, should I add some extra cardio in? Like, should I do some extra running? And I'm like, well, do you like running? If the answer is no, and I'm like, then no. You don't need to. If you love running, go ahead and run. If you don't love chicken, you don't need to eat chicken breast to be healthy, even though, like, you know, the rice, broccoli, and chicken is like a very standard, like, lean plate. So just engaging in routines, habits, food, exercise, make sure you're doing things that you like so that you will continue to do them.
I tell people, I'm like, what is when you're thinking in your head of you getting in shape, what does it look like? What are you doing? Are you squatting in the Smith machine, or are you doing cardio dance?
Right.
It's we're back to PE and we're not physical education. I call it physical entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm like, do what you want to do.
I love that.
Yeah, find
physical
that out.
entertainment. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's also like looking at other. I think people sometimes fail to look at the elements outside of just how you work out and what you eat. There are so many other components to your overall, like, health and happiness. Like, are you sleeping? Are you drinking water? Are you surrounding yourself with people in conversation that fulfill you? Is your Instagram just cluttered with accounts that make you feel worse about yourselves? Yeah. Right? Like.
Yeah, just your goals. It's okay to have people that you inspire you, but then if you have a whole page of people that, if your whole feed is just people that you're measuring yourself up against.
It's so cliche, but I think comparison really is the thief of joy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Comparison is the thief of joy. And so I always finish with this question. I think that I can learn something from everyone.
Sure.
And I feel like I call it taking a page out of their book and adding it to my book. And so if you could take a page out of your personal book and give it to the world, what would that book, or what would that page say?
So this is very specific because right now I think we operate and live in the age of social media. And I think your question is probably broader, and this might not be as meaningful as I feel like it could be, but if anyone's listening or has made it this far through my rambling, I would like for you, before you go to bed tonight, to log into your Instagram and give yourself like 10 to 15 minutes of scrolling and curate your Instagram feed, because we were just talking about comparison being the thief of joy, things and people and rhetoric that makes you feel worse about yourselves. And I feel like a lot of that these days comes from social media and this fake reality that it portrays through so many different accounts. And curate that and unfollow any account or page that makes you feel like shit or that makes you feel worse about yourself. Populate it and start populating it with things and people and voices that inspire you to inspiring to be better is different than making you feel bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just a super specific small thing, and it's a page out of my book because I did that last month, and I feel so good not seeing, this content that's designed to, fearmonger and trigger these negative feelings.
I'll do that tonight.
Do it tonight.
But
it feels good.
Yeah, it's like you shouldn't have to feel bad to want to get better.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you should just want to get better because you truly want to, and surround yourself in those pages and with people who are trying to help you grow and not just trying to make you feel bad about where you're at right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, good.
So where can people find you in the community other than Madabolic? Obviously you're at Madabolic.
I'm at you can always find me at Madabolic Charlotte. We have 2 locations in South End and Elizabeth. I'm there all the time. I feel like Lululemon South Park is my second home. Yeah. So you can find me in there kicking it with the team.
Oh yeah.
I really try and just bounce around Charlotte, and I love doing work in Not Just Coffee. You'll see me there quite often, especially in the new Huga J Street space. It's like my new favorite place to do work.
Love it.
If you ever want to go to a deep stretch class with me at Yoga One, DM me at Bacon and Squats. That's my Instagram handle. maybe I'm at Shane Lucas's or Shelby Baldwin's flywheel classes. I'm really just everywhere, but primarily your best bet is to find me in Mad. But yeah.
Perfect. And you just plugged in your social media on Instagram at
Bacon and Squats.
Bacon and Squats.
With a period separating bacon dot squats.
Okay. And then Facebook as well? Or
Facebook I'm on as Finley Funsten. I'm not super active on Facebook, candidly, but you know.
Yeah.
Friend me, maybe things change and Facebook makes a comeback.
Yeah. And I won't even tell people about your LinkedIn.
Yeah, that is embarrassingly out of date.
And do you have any last thoughts for the listeners?
No, I mean I hope some of you are still hanging on and listening, but thanks for hearing me out. I think I said everything I gotta say.
I love it. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're good to go. 55 minutes.
Was that all right?
Oh, it's perfect.
As you can see, a better answer for if you know Finley, you know that she has a tendency to word vomit.